Hi, hello. How are you guys doing? Um, Welcome to the data analysis mastery. And like I've always been saying in every of our classes, I would say that this is exactly where you become an expert data analyst in 7 days, even if you're a complete number newbie, aka you don't like maths or you dislike numbers. And of course, my name is Lola Ajala. And today we shall talk about data collection techniques. So, though the word technique appears there, but there isn't more of any technicalities in it. So, it's just a little storytelling and how tools to actually do each of these things. So, like I've always been welcoming you, welcome again. So, you might ask that what are the data collection process? So today, what we shall be talking about is that we talk about data types because knowing the type of data will assist you in several ways on how to collect this data. So that's the first point. And also talking about data, we also talk about data sources, where this data could come from. Also talk about the data collection techniques, how to go about, collecting this data, the technicalities. And I said the other time that yes, the word technicalities actually appears in it, but there isn't more of anything technical in it. And also, we'll talk about the tech integration into data collection. So, in yesteryears or in previous years, how do we collect data? And how are we collecting data today? And most likely, how would we be collecting data in the nearest future? And stories in between also. So let's commence. What are the types of data? So data types. So we have three main types of data types. So data are actually categorized into three broad forms. The first is quantitative data. The second is qualitative data, while the third is mixed. So by mixed, I mean the combination of quantitative data and qualitative data. And I'll pick each of these one after the other, and I'll give a backstory or story, tell them for you. So quantitative data is, just as the name implies, basically numbers. They are numerical in nature. And since they are numerical in nature, they always, most of the time, require the use of statistical analysis. So this is when you count the numbers, you compare the numbers with others. So it's basically numbers anyway. And the collection process or the collection techniques for this type of data, this quantitative type of data, at most cases is surveys and questionnaires. So quantifiable data like this, the ways that we can actually collect them is through surveys and questionnaires. And the sweet things about them is that they are much more easier to represent with charts and graphs, and they are basically objectives. So not objective in terms of objective questions or theoretical questions, but they are objective. They are totally dependent on the respondent. So should I say in your school, so take for instance, I'm talking to an headmaster or to an head teacher of a school. Then I say, how many classrooms do you have in this school? 20. Bam. Just a number. How many teachers do you have in this school? How many teaching staffs do you have in this school? 35. Bam. How many non-teaching staff? 10. Bam. Just like that. So getting the numbers straight or directly. So these are objective depending on your respondent. And the second type of data, obviously, is the qualitative data. And for qualitative data, it is very open that it is a kind of non-numerical data, and it is basically for patterns and meanings. So it is for us to study the patterns, to look at the trends, to look at the changes over time, what's happening, or to bring out meanings from the concept we're talking about. And most of the time it is described as rich data or thick data. So if perchance in your course of discussion you can actually say yes because I want to data, you can say yes because I want that data to be rich, and that's the reason I had to do a kind of observations and all of that. Do you get that? So for us to get rich data, most times quantitative data are called rich data, and they're subjective. They're subjective to the person collecting that data, because I and you, yes, I mean you, might be in the same situation at the same time, but our interpretation of situations might totally be different. Do you get that? So it is subjective to us. It is with which, just as a friend of mine would say, that it is with which the eyes that you see it. So yes, we might be in the same situation and the same condition at the same time, but see things differently. So it is most times subjective, and it depends on the data collector or the surveyor or the researcher. And that's the reason most of the time you advise somebody collecting qualitative data to, as much as possible, go there with a tabula rasa. So when I say tabula rasa, I mean that person should try as much as possible to go in there with a plain mind, erase all biases. So just go there, just be free. Leave your prior knowledge. So just put your prior knowledge, put them at home, then go into the situation and immerse yourself. Just learn, just pick it up. So if something happens and you think you need to ask a deeper question, you can probe further. Don't interpret them on your own. So that's the reason qualitative data is basically subjective. So it depends on you. And most of the times, the method for collecting qualitative data is actually by observation, by interview, by focus group discussion, and of course ethnography. I love ethnography. Deep dives, I love deep dives. So by those 4 ways, you can actually collect qualitative data. While the last but not the least, mixed data comprises quantitative and qualitative. So the cool thing about this thing, about mixed data, is that it gives strength to your analysis. So take for instance, I ask a school head or a school teacher that how many teachers do you have? And that person tells me I have 20 teachers. Yes, the person have actually given me the number. Then I may stylishly ask a qualitative questions by saying, okay, so why do you have 30? Why do you have 20 teachers, sir? So this person might give me a little bit of backstory, and this backstory might help me understand the reason this person actually has that 20 teachers. So from observations too, I could tell. So yes, at that point, maybe it's about 8:30 in the morning, and from my own observation too, I do not think I see more than 8 teachers. So I can ask that, yeah, but sir, I've been to some classes and this. I think I've only seen about 9 people today. So he can give a follow-up question that yes, we actually have 20, but 3 of them are on maternity leave, 4 of them are on this, and that's the reason we have just 8 teachers today. So by the time I'm telling my stories or making my analysis, I have backup stories. I have several other things to prove that yes, this is exactly what I mean. And that's one of the reasons mixed data is very okay. It also increases our validity of our evaluation. So it makes your evaluation valid because you have several things to explain. And it also helps you explain unexpected results. So in instances where you have a kind of result, you have an expectations for your result. So your how do I put it? So you're doing a project with an organization that has outlets in several places. And the organization already gave you a prior information that in the whole of their outlets that they do not have more than 10 staffs working in each outlet. And you walk into an outlet and you find out that they have 15 staffs. So by asking question, so you might not be the actual person doing the analysis. So take for instance the researcher went there, the person saw 15, the person asked proper questions, and the person noted all of those responses. So by the time the analysis is being done, I found out that this person has 15. How come? If you go back to the data collection process, you can actually understand why that happens to be 15 or why that happens to be lesser than 15. So it helps us explain unexpected results. Data sources. So what are the sources of data? So we have primary data and we have secondary data. There is no tertiary data. Because whenever we see things like this, say, okay, primary, secondary, yeah, they should be our tertiary data. So I'm sorry to disappoint you. There is no tertiary data. So we have primary data and secondary data. So what is the primary data? So primary data are data that has not pre-existence. They are not in pre-existence. We've never collected such data before. We don't even know what that data means. So, and they are collected freshly via observations, surveys, ethnographies, or interview. So you can collect data primarily through any means. But the reason it stands out is that it is the data that you've not collected before. So it's like a freshly baked cake. And the cool thing about primary data is that it enables you to collect specific and purposeful data. So data is directed at what you want. So someone might have collected related data, but might not be directly useful in what you want. So take for instance, somebody collected the data about people buying tomatoes or people's habits in buying tomatoes. So that data might differentiate from yours in terms of geography, in terms of location, and some questions because your aims might be different. So that data might not be directly targeted at what you want. So collecting primary data enables you to collect specific and purposeful data. But the downs of primary data is that it is expensive to collect, yes, and it's also time consuming. So for secondary data is a data that is already collected and it tells you other questions that needs to be addressed. And if you take 2 or 3 steps backwards to one of our classes, but yes, I think it was the writing a research plan class. I told you that before I write any research plan, I always do a kind of desk research. So desk research is to have an idea of this kind of research that has been done before. So I have an idea of, okay, what are the questions that most people ask? Then I try as much as I can to fine tune that question to suit me. So there are some questions that I would definitely take away. There are some that I would add, and there are some that I would just leave that way. So secondary data tells you other questions that needs to be addressed. And most of the time, secondary data are collected through research articles, through the internet. Yes, desk research is basically internet research, and from library sources. So you could go to libraries, take books on your main topic, then sift through them to come up with what we want. So I was doing research times ago about how people behave about around money in Nigeria. So how people behave around money. So it's a kind of it's a research I did with an expert behavioral economist. Yeah, the guys from Kenya is so good. So you just learn how people behave around money. And by the time when I was doing my desk research, so I could see people have done this kind of research from countries like Kenya, Malawi, Tanzania, and all of that. So that helped me in a whole lot of way to actually fine tune my guide. So that's one of the importance of secondary sources of data. So data collection techniques. How do we collect the techniques of collecting data? So I think I just put out 5 broad ones, and the first is interview. The second is questionnaire and surveys. I have observation, I have focus groups, and I have ethnographies. For interviews could be face to face. Yeah, you might just visit somebody and then have a talk with that person, and it could be over the phone too. So it's something I can actually pick up a phone, ask the question, and boom. So I just need to pitch that person. Good morning, ma. My name is Lola Jala. I'm calling from XYZ organization, and I'm conducting a survey about why you love to farm. And please take note, every of the responses I got from you will be treated with utmost confidentiality. Do you have 10 minutes to talk to me? Saying, yes, yes. Okay, then you start asking your questions. And as much as you can, you might want to record your conversation, or you might want to have a pen and paper beside you to actually jot down any response that that person says, which you can then, at the end of the conversation, enter into your computer, your tab, etc. So most times, interviews are in 3 basic forms. So I have the formal form, which is called structured. So you can have it in a formal form or a structured form. You can have it in a semi-structured form in between, and an unstructured informal form. So what I mean by structured form is following the questions just as it comes, and asking the questions just as you've designed your guide. What is this? What is that? Answering it in total just as you've presented it. And semi-structured might be, yes, taking one of asking your questions directly, and getting stories that are around it. So most times I love doing semi-structured interviews, because semi-structured interviews takes me totally away. So you just have to be very careful. Yeah, this has happened to me a lot of time. So when I take a structured when I do a semi-structured interview, if I'm not careful, sometimes I stray away from the main questions most of the time, because it's like a storytelling approach. So you have your respondent take the free ground. So explain to me, tell me the way it comes. Then from the explanation, from the story, I can actually pick responses to the questions that I want to ask that person. And whenever I need clarification, I just cut in and say, okay, so why this? Then the person can actually give you further explanation on that, then you keep going. And for unofficial or unstructured interview, is just, you just dabble around, pick one. You might pick question number 1 now, pick question number 32, pick question number 30 this, and all of that. So my very good example on that was that when I was collecting household data in some communities in Lagos to actually determine the level of income in such locations. So I would go to places like Lekki, talk to a couple of people, ask them some couple of questions, observe, go to Ajegunle, do the same thing, go to Songo, do the same thing. So doing all of those helped me understand the level of income in that environment. So I was basically collecting household surveys. I was basically collecting household data. So most of the time, my questions are semi-structured. Yeah, when I first joined, my questions were totally structured. So I follow those questions to notes. So I ask the first question, I go there, ask the second question. But the question happens to be about, I think, 256 questions. So with time, by the time I got used to those questions and all of that, so I basically switched to semi-structured type questioning. So I can ask 3 questions in one. Yeah, because I actually know what I want to get. So as part of the household question is, do you have a TV? Do you have a radio? Do you have a phone? So instead of asking that question directly, because respondent differs, you ask some people, do you have a TV? And the flashback to ask you, so they reply by asking you, why do you want to know if I have a TV? So you explain the reason, they ask you another question, you explain, they ask you another question. So before you know it, they'll totally digress you from your main duty. So the best way that I ask that question is, what kind of what TV channel do you like watching? So once that person tells me, yes, I like STV, say, okay, you like watching it every night, Shay? Say yes. So from there, I can now stylishly throw in that question that, okay, do you have a TV that you watch, or you watch it in a friend's house? I have a TV, of course. Bam, you've gotten your answer. But if it were to be a totally structured interview, I wouldn't even ask which TV station do you watch, because it's outside my question. Because it's not part of my question. So I'll just go directly. But the third one is observation. So observation as a data collection techniques helps us or allows us to study the dynamics of a situation, the frequency with which things are happening, and other behavioral patterns of that. And observation can definitely be qualified as qualitative and quantitative. So from observation, you can collect quantitative data or qualitative data. You can also use videos, pictures, and all of that. So since you're just observing, so you could just bring out your smartphone, take pictures, do recordings, and all of that. So it's basically observation. So I did a research recently that's with which the collection process is observation. So I call it the Billboard survey. So what that research is all about is that my organization has billboards in some specific locations. So we have plenty of them in some specific locations. And when the organization started in Nigeria, we paid for each of those billboards. And I think we paid for about 3 or 4 years or so. So when our, expiring dates nears, so the company in charge of it wants to know if we'd like to renew our spots on each of those locations, or we aren't interested. So my organization wants to do a kind of test that, yes, we've actually paid a huge amount of money on each of these spots. So do we want to see, is this thing actually giving us value, or is it just there? So is this marketing working? So I was asked to do the research. So the first thing I did was my desk research, of course. And from my desk research, I found out that most of the things that I need to consider while doing a billboard research is the number of people, passing that location, how visible is the billboard, how large is it, and some other very little things like that. So I have the whole of these things. And basically what I've gone to do is observe. So my data collection techniques for the number of people passing in that area is that for 2 minutes, I'll just stand and observe. So I just count the number of people walking around or walking past that billboard in 2 minutes. So I'll just set my timer, then I just keep counting with my eyes. Then I jot all of those down. Excuse me. So that's basically observation. So you see how big it is. You take a picture. You see where it's standing, on which side of the road does it stay, what are the characteristics, what is the behavior or the frequency of stuffs happening in that area. So that's a very good example of observation as a data collection technique. So also a focus group as a data collection technique, and as we all know that focus group is a facilitated group interview. So you have people in groups, and these people, they are binded by a common interest. Maybe you're binded by a common interest. So maybe these people are staffs in an organization, low-level staff, high-level staffs, primary two pupils, parents. So they have something in common. These people are those whose monthly income is between 10,000 and 20,000. These people are actually millennials that love tattoo. These people are actually millennials that have beards. So they have at least something in common. So, and most time focus groups are their perspectives, their opinions. You just want to know people's view, people's perception about about what you're actually searching for. And most of the time the responses are always coded in categories. So you pick a category, you code that, because once you have focus group description is always broad. So people just talk around based on your guide. So it's always okay. So the coding is always done in such a way that you categorize them, put them in categories, put them in buckets, so that you can actually or properly tell your stories from them. And the third, which I love most, is ethnographies. So ethnography is basically studying people in their context. So, and it involves studying a single phenomenon. So you examine people in their natural setting, because most time people might think that they are rational about doing things, but they might not. So you could ask somebody, whenever you want to go to fetch water every day, how do you go about it? And they tell you, yeah, I just pick my bucket, then I go to the stream, then I fetch the water and I come back home. Yes, that's the way they do it, right? So if you tend to study these people in their context, you might find out that they wake up in the morning, they take their toothbrush or take their toothbrush or their chewing stick. Then they walk to a friend's house. They pick their bucket too that they want to fetch water. Then they walk to a friend's house who lives along the way to the stream. Then they beckon on him or her, wait for some minutes before that person comes out, gets set to. Then they go to the stream together. Then maybe they use their chewing stick over there at the stream, wash their mouth over there at the stream, then come back home. So if you take a very good study of the process, you find out that they've had some additional activity in between, but they didn't say that when you asked the question. The person just basically told you, yes, when I wake up in the morning, I just grab my bucket, I go to the stream, fetch water, then I come back. But if you study them in their context, you find out that they have some other hidden activities in between that question that they did not do. So most times ethnographies are always respondent led. So you as the researcher, you are not the one pushing the data collection. So you just leave the respondent to live in his or her world while you observe, while you collect your data in that process. And if you think something struck you and you want to ask a question, it's always very good to ask questions. But one of the good ways for you to enjoy data collection through ethnography is by building trust between these people. So make them see that you are the same, kind of. Make them see that you are the same, kind of. Because if people have a feeling that you are superior, you might actually not get qualitative data from them. So it's always very good for you to make them feel among. So I think I've at some point shared my daughter's picture with the respondents when I was doing ethnography. Yeah, because I was asking deep questions about this person's child. And for that person to trust me, that person also wants to have a feel that yes, this person is also feeling the same thing as me. So it's always come in such way. And most times, ethnography uses a combination of observations, just as I've said the other time, interviews. So you see somebody do something and you think you want to know more about it, you can ask questions about that. So a very good example is shadowing a family while recording extensive field notes to study their experience. So one of the research I did, I think some years ago, about how people react around money. So I'm not just going there to ask them questions of, okay, so how do you deal with money? So I just stay there, immerse myself in their lives, then pick things. From the way they do things, you could actually tell if somebody, have if somebody actually, you can actually tell the way they react with money. So as an example, I was somewhere in a very rural part of Lagos and I was studying this woman around how she interacts around money. So I was at her shop. I just sat down there. One of the things I picked was the way she talked to her customers. So, okay, do you want to buy this? Okay. So it costs 300 naira. I say, oh, 300 naira is too much. Okay, I can give that to you for 250. Okay, I know I can buy it for 250. Just sell for me for 200. No, I can't go below 250. And the reason is, if you look at the pack, I bought the whole pack for 5,000 naira. So, and there are how many in it? There are just 20 pieces of these items in it. So if I calculate this by this, I have this. Doing everything without using a calculator, this person is conscious of money. It's just simple math. So this person is conscious of money just by doing that. Say I have 20 packs in it. So if I give this to you by this, then I'm going to have a short of this. And I can't do that. So the best is for me to sell it for you at that wholesale price. Then if another person comes, maybe I sell to that person at 260 or 270, then I can have a gain of 30 naira, have a gain of this in the whole of the pack, blah, blah, blah. So the way that person explains, the way that person deals with, talks about money, you can actually pinpoint something that, yes, this person is always conscious of money. So once you pay to that person, the way that person handles the money too. And by sitting to that person, you look at that person's buying lifestyle. Okay, this person doesn't just buy things. This person buy things that are actually needed. So from that, you could tell how that person lives around money. So that is that as regards, the data collection techniques. Also very important is integrating tech in data collection process. So gone are the days of biros and papers and asking questions and just ticking. And you find out that by the time you give questionnaires to people, they might not even understand the question, so they tick whatsoever they want. And that will bring an error in your data collection process. So these days, data is collected via, the online or web-based platform. So just like the Google Forms we treated some couple of minutes ago, I could generate that link, then send it to your email while you fill it online. So that's the type of online or web-based surveys. So some other type of survey are handheld surveys. So me going to each of these locations, like I said the other time, that I go to rural areas, talk to people. So my data collection process is actually through handheld devices. So I have ODK Collect on my tab. I have Survey to Go on my tab. I have Survey Monkey on my tab. So I just ask that question, and by asking that question, I just input them on my tab just at that spot. So I ask you the question, give me the response, I input it, then I go to the next question. So you ask me, I go to the next question, and I keep doing that on and on and on until I round up that survey. So that one is basically through handheld devices. So you could also conduct a survey using text messages. So that I haven't seen that rampant in Nigeria, but it's very possible. And one of the problems we in Nigeria have with these text messages kind of data collection is that having discussion with telcos is kind of difficult. So telcos are totally money driven, so they want to make money. So before a normal researcher could go to them and have a discussion with them, and you discussing payments platform, how this, how that, yeah. So you found out that the time is long wasted and you couldn't go further. So text messages, yes, is possible, but I've never seen it that rampant in Nigeria. But the way it can definitely work is just asking a series of questions and telling or prompting your responses to answer in 1, 2, or 3. So it's like saying, which area do you love most? If it is urban, choose 1. If it is rural, choose 2. So just like just as if you want to purchase data from your phone, and you just use the normal line and say, okay, press 1 to do this, press 0 to do this, and all of that. So you could collect data through that process. And the third is social media. You have seen this happen very well on Twitter. So they could tell you, between Lasisi Elenu and Maraji and Wole Arole, which do you think is funniest? So you can actually click on whichever you want. So that one is the first way. Another way is by saying, between this person and this person, which one is better? So do a like if you think this person is better, then do a retweet if you think this person is better. So it's just as easy as that. So I've seen that several times on Twitter. So you could say, between a Nokia and a Techno phone, which is better? Like if Nokia phone is better, retweet if Techno phone is better. So that's all. So from there you could actually get responses. So that is just very easy. So to round everything up, basically data collection process is just for you to understand your data types. Know that, okay, my data is qualitative or quantitative or a mix of both. Know that your data is primary and not secondary, or it is secondary and not primary. Know that your data collection techniques could fall into any of these or more of these at a particular time. Could fall into interview, questionnaires and survey, observation, focus groups, or ethnographies. Then understand very well the tech integration in data collection process. So these will help you properly collect your data. So I hope we get that. And the stories in between, I hope you have a feel of my, bringing my experiences into this data collection process. So that's basically that as regards that. So I'll see you in a couple of moments for the rest of the course. Thank you very much for listening. Bye bye.